Welcome to the Coach's Corner. I'm Mike Van Hoozer. Today I want to talk about one leadership skill that you're probably overlooking, and it could be the most critical one to your success. As you know, we talk about leadership and peak performance on this channel, and earlier this week we talked about designing in our audio podcast and how that role, the leader as designer, is one of the most essential roles of leadership, but it's often overlooked because it's the behind-the-scenes type of role. And I think it's critical to your success that you think about the things that you're doing around designing an effective environment for others to succeed. And that's how we defined the leader as designer. That person is a master architect. It's setting up people for success. And we drew the analogy to a coach who draws up the winning play at the end of the game. And often the attention goes to the player who made the play versus the coach who designed the play for others to succeed. And that's my key question for you this week is how are you leading as a designer? And are you thinking about this role in your leadership style? Because again, it's often a behind the scenes type of role. And there are three areas where I think the leader as designer can play an essential part in your organization's success. And you can focus on these three areas to help become a better designer and a better leader. The first is around people, and there are three P's: people, processes, and principles. And the first role is people. Do you know the strengths of your people? And are you setting them up for success? Or are you making other criteria and other decisions based on who you assign tasks to, and it's not based on their strengths and how they can come together and collaborate together? I think it's often an analogy that we talk about around chess and checkers, and how good leaders play checkers with their people. It's more transactional. And in checkers, all the pieces kind of move the same. And yet in chess, it's very strategic because the pieces play a different role and they can move in a different way. And you have to know the strategy behind that. And dealing with people, leading your people and impacting them and helping them to grow is much more important than just playing a game of chess. But it's very similar in knowing the strengths of your people, what makes them successful, how they can contribute their strengths and their gifts and talents to the contribution of the overall team and what you're trying to do as an organization. And so you need to become aware and self-aware of the strengths of your people, and then how you design environments to bring those strengths together to accomplish the goals that you're trying to accomplish from a team perspective and from your organization or company's perspective as well. And this plays a role in sports, but I'm talking mainly about business today on this podcast. But it's important to know the strengths of your people and be able to design an environment where they can succeed and thrive. And also not only in accomplishing goals, but that helps them grow in their career as well. So people is the first way that you can design an effective environment to take advantage of their strengths, to leverage their strengths, and to allow them to unleash their talent. The second area is processes. So it's how you go about things as a team and as a company, as an organization. Do you have processes set up that allow your strengths to come forward, that you allow your people to be effective, or are they getting in the way of people being successful? And in today's environment where we're using a hybrid model, where over the last couple of years it's been mainly virtual, but we're getting back to a hybrid model where it's in person and virtual. Are you taking advantage of processes, and have you put processes in place that will allow your team to succeed? Are you using online tools effectively? Are you giving time off for people and not just cramming the day with Zoom meetings and other things like that, but are you giving them time to think and collaborate and to think strategically and to design solutions in addition to just having a bunch of online meetings or a bunch of hybrid meetings where people are having to go all over the place to just meet, but you're meeting about things that could allow time for creativity and innovation and other things. And so thinking about the balance of meetings versus creative time and solutioning and strategy is really important. And if you set up processes for people to collaborate effectively together, because you may be having people who are coming back to the office and you may have people who are actually working remote. And so have you set up effective systems and processes for them to work effectively together and also to bring the best solutions in place? And then the third thing is foundational to these other areas as a designer. Are you establishing principles as a team and as an organization that are unwavering by circumstance? That you could equate these to core values as well, but principles are things that don't change, and they don't change based on circumstances. And so things like mutual respect, things like integrity, do we say what we do what we say we're going to do? Those kinds of things, and do people know what those core values are and what those principles look like in practice? And I think it's important as a leader that you define what those principles are and what they look like in action, and that everybody knows what they look like in action, so that people can say, we're about these core values, or we're about these principles, and this is what it looks like. And to take time out to discuss those in meetings, to discuss what those look like as you come together as a team, and discuss what those look like in practice with clients that you interact with as well. So people, processes, and principles. Are you devoting time to designing the most effective environment to put those into practice? Or are you just thinking about assigning tasks and leading and speaking and talking and reprimanding and giving feedback and all of those other things, but not taking a step kind of behind the scenes to make sure things are working well for your organization and for your people? And I think you can do that also by taking an assessment to make sure that you talk to people and say, hey, where do we need to make improvement in the way we leverage our teams and our people? How do you want to contribute this year? How can I be more effective as a leader in helping you to unleash your best? And I think that's important in one-on-ones as well as a team. Thinking about processes, and maybe you've done something for a while and it's worked well, but you need to deconstruct that process and think about, well, how could we innovate that process? How can technology enable that better? And what are ideas that the team has to help develop more effective processes? And then from a principle standpoint, even though these should be unchanging, making sure that you're asking the team, are we truly living out these principles? Are we treating each other with respect? Are we living out the core values of our organization? And if we're not, how can we reinforce that? And how can we give accountability to that as well? So designing, it's an often overlooked skill of leaders, but the great leaders are great designers. They're not only up front casting vision and communicating and encouraging and doing those types of things that are externally focused, but they're also designing behind the scenes and making sure that they're selfless in their leadership and design the best environments for people to thrive. Think about how you can be a better designer in your role of leadership. And as always, make the most of the moments in your life.